This text does not have more to do with astrology than anything else, and I'll prove it using logic, which you have very little of.
You know, you said this image isn't a symbol of Christianity. Well, it may not have been when it originally started, but it is today. And second, I think that's kind of interesting that you say this is the exact meaning behind it. Well, you probably don't know that considering you don't cite any sources. And I honestly think you can find symbols in just about anything you look for them in. I mean, look at all the conspiracy theorists out there. At 1 minute and 19 seconds in your video, you have the verse that says, Matthew 28 verse 6, that says, Go, er, and go quickly, and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead. You're talking about the sun rising. But I'm really curious how you justify using that verse when you just said that his 12 disciples were the 12 constellations. So is Mary? I think it's Mary. I don't know. I never memorized my Bible verses as a little kid. But, do you... Why is she going to tell the constellations that the sun rose? I mean, does that really make any sense? And at 1 minute and 30 seconds into your video, you use John 3:3. Verily I say unto thee, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom. I happen to know for a fact that that particular verse is talking about being born again like being born as a little child. Well, I think it's very interesting that you use this verse. Again, I think it's a misquote because, yeah, that's not the right one. Or at least it's not applicable to that particular saying. You could have probably found another one, but you should probably get your facts straight before you start criticizing God. I mean, he is God. At 1 minute and 41 seconds, you say that he came forward wearing a crown of thorns, which were really sun rays, and your quote is, Then Jesus came forth wearing a crown of thorns, John 19:5. Why wasn't Jesus always wearing a crown of thorns then? I mean, is there justification that he should only have sun rays right before he dies, proverbially? Proverbially? I think it's proverbially? I don't know. Anyways, just another question I'm curious about. So, you say that they built this calf of, gold, and Moses is angry because he represents the new age of Aries. And while all of your science about the procession is correct, I'm really, really curious. Wasn't it Baal, the current popular god at the time? Or like, pseudo little g god at the time, who they built a statue to? And couldn't it just be that the Jews blow the ram's horn because, I don't know, that's what they had at the time? I mean, it doesn't make any sense that they'd blow antelope horns. They didn't raise antelopes. Come on, man. Anyways, why aren't you citing any of this? It still bothers me that you don't say, and this is where I got this information, this is where I got this information. You'd get docked majorly if you were in a debate. Docked severely. Then again, I am speaking as a high school forensics kid. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm just saying, here's what I'm curious about. So here's what I'm curious about. Wait, so at 1 minute and 40 seconds, you have a picture of Aquarius up on your screen, or up on my screen, up in your video. And you say that he's a man always pictured pouring out water. But wasn't the Bible verse you'll see a man carrying a pitcher of water? I mean, if this is your irrefutable proof that Christianity is actually about solar paganism, shouldn't it be exact? I mean, allowing for, like, historical change. Yeah, sure, but still, if this is the truth that you're shoving in my face without proof, other than me taking your word for it. I think it should be straight on, man. Now, you say that the age of Pisces is the personification of the age of Jesus, but I was kind of curious about that, so I looked online and I went to the first website I could find on Google, and this is debonsmith.com. And it says here that as for Aphrodites and Eros, who escaped the monster's wrath, these two were given their fish-like images in the heavens, thus commemorating the time Typhon, or Typhoon, who the gods were afraid to fight, nearly overran Olympus. Later, cultures equated the two fish with the biblical story of the miracle of the fishes and the loaves. Later cultures. So aren't you saying that's just what I found? I don't know if that's right. I'm just saying from what I found, and I'm giving the source. If you can discredit the source, please do. I don't want to be quoting some wrong source. But it says later cultures here, and doesn't that mean that you're kind of taking something that had a story and was created for one purpose and changing it to suit your own purposes? The Mayans thought the end of the world was coming. Said there are so many people in America that think the world is coming to an end. Well, ever since George Bush took office, I bet that number has jumped a bit. But I'm just saying, you show these images of Christians parading around with big signs that say, "Let's bring God back to America." And I really wish people wouldn't do that, because it gives Christians a bad name that they don't deserve. Because yes, well, there are groups like the Westminster Baptist Church that come to Colorado Springs and protest, soldiers' funerals and say, "You're dead because, America's not hard on gay people," or whatever they say. I don't even know. Anyways, what I do know is that for every one of those people, there are 100 more quiet Christians that just try to live in this world and just try to go through every day as best they can, being the best person that they can be. The quiet Christians never make headlines, and that's why no one remembers them. So please don't use anti-Christian propaganda if you're presenting a scientific argument. You say Horus is exactly like Christ because he has an immaculate conception. Well, yeah, there are a lot of immaculate conceptions in literature, and pretty much everywhere you look you can find them. I mean, Norse mythology, Greek mythology, pretty much everywhere. But what I find really interesting is that you stop there. Horus wasn't, Jesus's kind, forgiving, savior of humanity. He was... I don't even know what he was the god of. I think he was the god of... No, that was somebody else. I don't know. Wouldn't it be Ra, though? Because Ra was the sun god, or am I just totally way off base here? I mean, again, please tell me if I'm wrong, but what about the whole life of Jesus? You kind of address his birth and his death and not a lot in between. I mean, is the whole doctrine of grace and the fact that Christianity is the only religion that has a doctrine of grace completely missed on you? Could you please get a higher quality, uploading thing? Because I can't read any of the similarities between Horus and Jesus. And that's interesting stuff. I mean, come on. Did you know that the flood is what's called an archetype? Which means it's found in all cultures across the world. It's like the dragon. The dragon is found in every culture in the world. Mayan societies, Egyptian, Chinese, Norse. But they never had any contact. Archetype. Saying the Epic of Gilgamesh is the only trustable source is bias. Which, I mean, you have to be. You're making this video. It's obvious you're gonna be biased, but again, at least cite the fact that it is an archetype and it's shown in every culture across the world. You said that it was in 260 whatever, but that doesn't mean it's plagiarism.
Tannis here.